What is up, everybody? We are back. This time we are going to be doing Daniel Beatriz round one of Junior Worlds. He's participating in the MJ10 division, so this is taking place at the same time that his cousin Ivan is playing. So Daniel's playing on Jones West, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have Ivan here with me to correct me if I do say anything incorrectly. In an effort to try to get these videos out and on YouTube, I am writing solo on the commentary here for round 1 and 2 for Daniel. He should hopefully be joining me back here for rounds 3 and 4 to finish up his Junior Worlds for 2025. So I hope you guys all enjoy. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We have many more things coming. The season's not over for both the kids. They still have a few more tournaments left to finish out their season, and then we'll be back in the off season and they'll be working on a few things heading into 2026. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over here to the TD for Daniel's videos. I was able to get the announcement for all 4 players on each one of his rounds. So here we go.
Maryville, Tennessee, Fields, Kalar.
Eddie, come this one, please.
You got it, bud.
All right, Fields, Kalar, whenever you want.
Yes.
Ooh, burning that
Yep.
hill. Nice. And from Garden City, Kansas, we have Daniel Beatriz. Woo-hoo! Nice job, Daniel. Woo-hoo! And from Estes Park, Colorado, we have Edison Mann. Woo-hoo!
Oh, yeah.
And our final competitor tee off for the 10:48 time is from Roswell, Georgia, Bryce Porter. Woo-hoo!
All right, and we're off. So starting off on hole 1, 308-foot par 3.
All right, everybody.
Kids started off, giving themselves their fist bumps, their good lucks to start the round. It's great to see all these kids participating in an event like this. I mean, how many tournaments can you go to, and can you say that you see a lot of just junior kids playing a tournament? Most of the tournaments that, if you participate in disc golf or watch disc golf, it's older people, right? People in their 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever it might be. So to have just a tournament just for kids is great. It's showing a good way to grow the sport, continue the sport into the future. These kids are going to be what's going to carry the sport for the next, several years, hopefully decades, right? And then hopefully their kids too. So starting off on hole 1, Daniel had a good throw. He was able to throw that ESP Cicada. So if you guys watched his doubles round, he had mentioned in the commentary that disc was one of his favorite discs going into Junior Worlds. He had actually gotten that from one of our club members of the Garden City Disc Golf Club, Jamie Fisher. I believe the week before Junior Worlds, we had played a 4th of July doubles round as a club, and he had brought some disc along with a couple of other club members, brought some disc that they were trying to get rid of. So Daniel picked up that ESP Cicada from Jamie, and I wasn't paired up with Daniel for that round, but from what he was saying in the commentary, I think he had almost aced hole 7 back home in Garden City. So after that round, he said he wanted to keep it in his bag. And, something that I'm doing with Daniel is letting him trust himself, letting him throw what he wants. And we'll talk about that a little further into either this video for round 1 or round 2. But he's starting to learn his discs a lot more. He knows what works for him, what doesn't work for him. He's a lot more confident on the tee, a lot more confident when he's putting. I think that goes a lot with the work he's putting in. He put a lot of work going into this year. At the end of last year, after 2024 Junior Worlds, he said that he really wanted to work on it and give disc golf a bigger opportunity. So that's something that he's been working for. Some days he might not want to practice, but I know it's important for him to do it. So he pushes himself and he expects a lot of himself. So you'll see throughout the 4 rounds that he gets a little bit down on himself if he misses a putt he knows he should make, or if he has a bad throw off the tee. But that's something that we're working on too. The mental game is a big part of disc golf and everything in general in your life, right? So through 3 holes, Daniel was able to get a par on hole 1. Unfortunately, on hole 2, he left his approach a little bit short, so he ended up with the bogey. His putt was good for par. It was just nose down. He caged it, so he had to tap in for a bogey. Now, he bounced right back on hole 3, and he got a solid drive off the tee, and he was within about 5 feet, so he was able to birdie that and get back to even. So now we're on hole 4, 285-foot par 3. So this one on the practice round, we were playing it to go to the left of the tree in front of the tee box, kind of swing it over the OB on that sidewalk, and then bring it back in. He had a really good throw here. He was probably halfway through. His approach was good. He left himself about a 20-footer, and that's something he's been working on. He's actually been putting pretty good within about 20-ish feet, so he almost left himself the same distance putt back. So here, good putt, came a little low, got the lip of the rim, but it was able to stick and catch. So he does end up, unfortunately, getting a bogey there on 4, so he's +1 through 4 holes. Hole 5 is 260-foot par 3. This one more sets up for a forehand, for a flick forehand, because you have the line of trees on your right, so you want to swing it out to the left, have it come back to the right. Now, you can do a big turnover if you have a really good turnover game with the backhand. That's an option. Or if you could get sneaky and kind of cut one of these trees with the backhand and have it skip up to the basket, that was another play. I know that's something that I had seen a few of the players do during the doubles tournament 2 days prior, and they got about 3/4 of the way there. They were edge of circle most of the time. So Daniel there, I think, was throwing his Nuke OS. When we went up to the hole, it wasn't very breezy for his round, but he felt more comfortable with the Nuke OS because what he was trying to actually do was swing it out farther left and have that bite a lot harder back to the right. It just unfortunately came out a little early. His approach was good, so he ended up with a par. Hole 6, 312-foot par 3. I thought this was one of the coolest holes for them because they have the water carry right off the tee. So going in there is OB. So if you land in there, you go right to the drop zone. But outside of that, if you're able to clear the water and push far enough up, you're going to leave yourself an easy approach to the basket, which you'll see here in a few minutes is going to be a lifted basket. So you want to get as close as you can on your approach or off your drive if you have the distance to get up there to give yourself an easy putt. Because even though it was calm this day, if it starts to get breezy throughout this tournament, you don't want to leave yourself a 15, 20 or longer foot putt in the wind, because you're going to have a tendency to miss those when typically you make them. So Daniel had a good approach. He was about 7 feet from the basket. Great putt there, makes it, and gets out of hole 6 with a par. So through the first 6 holes, he's +1. We're moving on to hole 7. This is a 230-foot par 3. So this one, you'll see that the only OB is the pond to the left. So this one really didn't come into play unless you were going to do a flick through the trees that you see in front there, the first and one right in front of it to his left. So what he was doing, he was playing a turnover to get up to the basket. Now, he, I believe, decided to go with his his Z-Lite Thrasher. I thought it was a good disc choice. Unfortunately, he threw it with too much ante, so it turned into a roller. And because there was a bit of a hill here, his disc ended up rolling OB, so you could see him going to get his disc right now. So unfortunately, on this one, his approach was good. It got him right by the basket, but unfortunately, again, for him, it was a bogey. So one of the things that we practiced in the practice round leading up to the tournament was he was throwing his Star Gorgon. It's one of the discs that he got last year at Junior Worlds, and it's become a disc that if he throws it flat with some power, it will turn on its own and then have a little bit of fade at the end. But he felt more comfortable with the Z-Lite Thrasher on that hole, which again, I told him, it's feel or throw what you feel is best for the hole. So as a caddy, I'm trying to learn to just let him play his game. I don't want to give him too much input where he feels like he's not doing what he wants to do. So that's one of the biggest things that I've been trying to work on myself is not kind of take control and make it seem like I'm playing, because I'm not. He's the one that's out there, throwing the discs and putting and doing everything he needs to be or have a very solid round. So on this hole, this one kind of laid up more as a backhand and forehand. You could go around that big pine tree on the right, or go out flick left. Had a good drive off the tee. Had a good approach, good putt for par. So I mean, so far through 8 holes at +2 is not too bad. Ideally, he wanted to be a little bit farther under or even. I know on Sunday when we went out and practiced it, which I think we practiced it Monday too, he had a really good round on. I think it might have been his Sunday practice round. I think he ended up shooting anywhere between -1 or -3, if I'm not mistaken. So he was feeling very confident going into round 1 this day. So one of the things that I mentioned a little bit ago, one of the things that Daniel is working on is that mental game. There are some times where if he has a bad throw, if he has a bad putt and takes a bogey or maybe goes OB, he lets his emotions kind of get the best of him. And although showing emotion while you play, I think is a good thing. You don't want to let that get into your head so much to the point where if it affects you with, how the rest of the round goes. And that's something that Daniel kind of struggled with for this round 1. It wasn't as bad as it has been before, but it is something that it kind of affected him through this middle stretch here, because he just got a bogey on hole 9. So he's kind of in his head, and it's something that, him and I try to talk throughout the round is, hey, you have to have fun. You have to smile, even if you have a bad hole, let it go, because you might be able to capitalize on the next one and take a birdie, and you eliminate what just happened on the last hole. So that's one of the biggest things you guys will see throughout his 4 rounds. And I think he did a lot better as he started to get through the middle of this week. Is he had a better mental game. He was smiling more. He was laughing more. And it's not to say he's not like that when he's down. It's just he lets that affect him a little bit more. So we're now on hole 10, 267-foot par 3. So Daniel had a good drive. He was in the middle. I think he was approaching with his glow tank. I think it was a good approach. He just threw a little bit too hard where it just pushed him past the basket, almost to OB. Luckily, he was safe because that little bit of tall grass right behind him was OB. Had a good putt, just pushed it a little far to the right. So unfortunately here, he's going to go bogey again on hole 10 to take him to +4. So this is one of those stretches where he went bogey. So he was kind of in his head. He was a little bit down, and I told him, hey, there's nothing wrong with that, because I knew going into hole 11, which you see here on the screen, 356-foot par 4, this was a very gettable hole for him. And in doubles, in all of his practice rounds, he was able to birdie this every time. So as long as he can get a good drive off the tee, land somewhere in the middle on the second pond area, he was comfortable with his approach up to the basket. So right here, you'll see again, he's throwing this purple disc, which again is his ESP Cicada. He threw it a little bit high, but he threw it with enough hyzer where it didn't flip on him. So it just held that hyzer line and it pushed through that tree. So it gave him about 150-foot, 200-foot, about 150-foot approach up to the basket. Really, really good throw. I think he was throwing his tank again, so it left him about a 5 to 7 foot putt for birdie. So after this one, he was feeling confident because he knew the next 2 holes were very gettable for him. So he was able to get the birdie there. So, and you'll see here on hole 12, once we get to the map here on the screen, it's a 238-foot par 3. This has the option of either backhand to the right and cutting those 2 trees on the right, or flicking it out, not really over the road, but kind of pushing that OB line and having it come back to the right. So this was another one of those holes that in doubles and all of his practice rounds, he was able to birdie. So he was confident in these three holes here that he would be able to get them. He had a really good throw. He chose to go with his, I believe, his Metal Flake Destroyer there. I thought it was a good throw. Unfortunately for him, it just got a little bit nose up, a little bit high on him, where he clipped one of those branches right here and it just dropped him. I think if he could have got it swung out a little bit farther, he would have been good. So unfortunately, there was no other option. I mean, he rolled it out from there. I was kind of telling him, let's just pitch out to the left and then we'll approach and let's just take the bogey and move on, we don't want it to get to any worse than what it can be, because that could easily turn into a double, at worst. So he rolled out of there, which was fine. He had a good approach. He got it right under the basket, so he's able just to tap in for par or for bogey, excuse me. So unfortunately, the birdie that he just got on hole 11 basically was erased there, and I know he didn't like that. So again, we talked about it going into hole 13. We talked that next hole is 379 foot par 4. It's gettable if he can get a solid drive off the tee and maybe cut the hole in half. Then he'll leave himself about 150 foot approach into the basket. So he again here is choosing his ESP Cicada. So what he's trying to do is flex it in between these trees and push far enough down the middle as he can. That way he can leave himself as short as possible approach so he can get under the basket. So he threw it great. It's just that disc is still pretty new. It's not beat in, so it's gonna hold the flex just a little bit if he doesn't put too much ante on it, and it's gonna fight back out to the right. But he had a really good throw, so he left himself a good approach. I believe he's throwing his tank there, and because it's one of those softer glow tanks, if he gets a little bit too much ante on it, like you saw there, it's gonna hold it for a lot longer, and it doesn't always want to fight out of it. So he looked over at me. He's like, I put too much ante on it, didn't I? I was like, you did, but you still gave yourself a decent bid at a putt at the edge of the circle or inside the circle. So he did a really good job. He gave himself a good bid to look at birdie. He was a little bit long of the basket, I would say about 10, 15 feet, but he made his comeback putt for par. So he was able to sneak out of at a hole 13 with the par. So that's not bad at all. So we're moving on to hole 14, 257 foot par 3. This one, you could not see the basket off the tee. You had to kind of walk up to the front of the tee box to look over or to look at it. It was over to the right and between the trees like you saw on the map there. So this played more for the forehand unless you trusted a backhand turnover. So Daniel, I believe, is throwing his Nuke OS on this one. And that one has a little bit more bite at the end than his Z-Lite Nuke. His Z-Lite Nuke tends to turn a little bit more and come back at the end. But his Nuke OS, and it is a Z-Lite Nuke OS, tends to fight back a lot harder. So he just pitched up there because he knew from where he was at, because he had to straddle out because he was a bit to the left of those hanging branches on the pine tree. But he was able to get out of there with a par on hole 14. So moving on to hole 15, 260 foot par 3. If you guys all watch the doubles round, you'll see that he ended up going on the left-hand side of this hole. He was playing kind of the flex to come back to the right. And one of the things we didn't see, and we didn't even see this in the practice round, but we saw it when we played the doubles, is some of the players were dumping out kind of where Daniel's going out here to the right. Unfortunately, off the tee there, he got that a little high, a little too much hyzer, so it skipped out of bounds. But if you can land in this area where he's at right now off the tee, you're giving yourself a very good chance at a par. If you have the power, you can go, backhand hyzer over around the tree on the right and get up by the basket, or even a forehand. And one of the things I didn't think about, one of the things his uncle, my brother Luis, told me was, why not just play a big spike hyzer forehand to the left of those trees and kind of hit the middle gap and then get by the basket. Looking back at it, that was probably something we should have tried in practice with Daniel. I just never saw the line until he told me, and since we didn't get a chance to practice it, I didn't want Daniel to throw that, since he only threw the one shot in doubles, and then he was practicing more the one going to the right. We kind of stuck with that game plan. So moving on to hole 16, 228 foot par 3. This is a cool hole. It's not a long hole, but it's just a straight down the middle hole. Daniel, in his practice round, the Friday we got up there when he played with Nicola for half a practice round, almost aced it. During the doubles tournament, if you guys watched the video, he almost aced it again. And I want to say he almost aced it again either Sunday or Monday when we did another practice round. So he knew coming into this hole that should be a very gettable hole. Unfortunately, he did throw his ESP Cicada again. He threw that one more flat, so it didn't want to flip as much, and it just dumped out to the right. And like I told him, there was nothing wrong with that. Yes, you want to get a birdie on that hole because it's pretty short, but a par is not a bad thing on a hole. Once you start looking at bogeys and double bogeys, then yeah, you might want to start being, okay, yeah, what did I do wrong? What can I fix? So moving on to hole 17, 293 foot par 3. So this one, I think, was both backhand, forehand friendly. Daniel could have gone down the gap, but one of our fears, both of our fears, was that if he went down the middle and he put way too much ante on one of his discs, he had a very good chance of hitting one of the pine trees on his left, either going in them or falling right behind them, where he would have left a longer approach and a harder approach to get up there, especially since he doesn't have the best backhand. It is something that he's been working on. It is something that we'll continue to work on this year and going into the off season. So hopefully by next year, he's more comfortable throwing a backhand off the tee or off some of his approaches. So he was able to get a par there. So finishing up Daniel's round one, hole 18, 277-foot par 3. This was a gap shot. So for a forehand, you had to flex something through these trees. You could throw a backhand as well, but you have to kind of flex it or just dump out to the left. Daniel had a really good throw off the tee. Throwing again his ESP Cicada. He threw it correctly with the flex he needed. Unfortunately, that tree was just in the way, right? So he luckily hit the tree, kicked out left. He looks back over at me again. He threw the right disc on his approach. I think this time he was throwing his champion Rhino because he wanted a little bit more stability coming back to the right. So he left himself about a 20-foot or 15-footer, but he had a really solid putt. Hits a dead center, drops, finishes his round with a par. Overall finishes his round +5, which is not bad. So Daniel's round one, as I just mentioned, he finished +5. He was in a tie for 16th place. So out of, I think, 32 kids, for my opinion, he did very good. He was middle of the pack. I know he was a bit upset because I can't remember if we practiced it Sunday or Monday or both days. He knew he probably should have finished around even or possibly anywhere between like the -1, -3 area. So he was a bit down after a round. His mom and I talked to him after his round and kind of tried to get his spirits back up and told him, hey, even though you didn't shoot what you wanted to, you had a pretty good round. There were some putts that you had to make to save your par. There were some putts that you kind of left out there that could have gotten you a birdie or, could have just saved your par. So overall, after our talk, he was feeling a little bit better, and he was excited going into day 2, because day 2, when that video goes up, you guys will see he played a very familiar course with a few changes from earlier in the year in March. Head over to the channel and go watch Monkey Island. That was a great round. He was able to play with 2 of his very good disc golf friends, in Hudson Casper and Seven O'Brien. But that layout was 20 holes. But for this layout, since it's a tournament, it was 18 rounds. 18 holes, excuse me. So thank you all for watching. Hope you guys all enjoyed, and stay tuned for round 2.